Welcome to this week's edition of the Belau Report. I'm Jade Belau. Our guest this week is George Beech, and he is the co-founder and head of an organization called Salt and Light. And first we'll introduce you to the viewers, and I was going to say voters, but it isn't voters.
Not an election.
It's to the viewers. Yeah. And go ahead and tell us how you happen to be here.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. It's a privilege to be here with you, and it's a program that's been going on for so long. But yeah, so we started Salt and Light Partners just 2 years ago. So we're just 2 years old, in fact, in 5 days from now. And it started, to just take a step back just a little bit, when I met Chief Jim Franklin, so our Rochester police chief, at the mayor's prayer breakfast. That was the first time that we had met, and we got into a really nice conversation. And at one point he goes, you know, I would love to have a chaplain at the Rochester Police Department. Is that something that you could do? And so we started talking about that, and I started researching what it would look like to have a chaplaincy in Rochester. And after 2 years, I figured I really couldn't do this on my own. So it was going to take a lot more work than I could do. Full-time work as a pastor, and then also to be a part-time chaplain would be difficult to do. So we separated from the pastoral work and began doing this full-time. And that's really how it got started, with an idea with Chief Franklin, and then he handed it over to me, and then we partnered with this for the last 2 years.
We interviewed Chief Franklin, I think, in December, and he is a very thoughtful,
Yes.
community-oriented chief.
Yeah, I think we're blessed in this community to have someone
We are.
as qualified and as empathetic and caring and compassionate as Chief Franklin.
He's your co-founder.
Well, it was his idea, really, to start this, and so I really founded it with a group of community leaders who are on our board still to this day. So the same board members that we started with are the same board members that we have today. And they are unique and gifted and talented in different areas that come together to make a team that gives excellent advice and good governance for our organization. And we're a nonprofit, so that's how that works.
Now, you were born in Byron?
Yes, the metropolis of Byron.
I know about Byron. It's a great place to be from.
Yeah. It was a great place to grow up. It was small, so there were some real advantages to being small. But one of the disadvantages was people knew everything that you did all the time. And so I decided when I graduated from high school that I wanted to go to the big city. And that's where I went to the University of Minnesota for my undergrad. And then I went into the Army and explored some things in the world before I came back, because that's what you do in small town. It kind of draws you back, and so it was really nice in 2008 for my wife Christine and I to move back to the Rochester area near Byron.
And you went to seminary after you came back?
Yeah, I went to Dallas Theological Seminary, which was a fabulous school for me. It was a good fit for the beliefs that I have. It was really a privilege to be able to go to that school, as it's just such a great school.
Yeah. And
yeah, so
the rest is history.
There's a lot in there. But to back up a little bit, I met my wife in the military. We met actually in Augsburg, Germany, and I separated from the service, and she stayed in, and we moved to Texas. And then we moved to Washington, D.C. And after 9/11, I wanted to get back into the military again, but I'd been out for 6 years. It had been too long. And they said, you can't come back in as a soldier, but you can come back in as a civilian in a special program. So I got back into the U.S. Army as a special agent for counterintelligence, and that turned into counterterrorism. It resulted in a deployment to Afghanistan for me, where I did some of the best work I think I've ever done in my whole life there before returning. And then that was the point where Christine and I decided that we wanted to cut ties from Washington, D.C. and then come back to small town America in the Midwest.
And you have children and grandchildren?
Yes, yeah, I have 2 daughters. Both are married. One daughter lives right here in Rochester, and she and her husband are raising my grandchildren, because that's what they are. Of course, my grandchildren. They live only about 2 miles away, so it's fabulous to be able to go and meet with them, whenever we want, and they can come and pop by and see us. And my younger daughter just got married this year, and she lives in Waco, Texas. Is going to Baylor grad school.
Okay. Now, when you met Chief Franklin,
Yeah.
what was your first impression?
Well, it was a little bit planned on my part. So he was in the newspaper being sworn in by the mayor to be the new police chief. And I'm like, that seems like a guy that I would want to know in our community. I didn't really know anything about him, so I cold called him and I said, hey, would you like to come to the mayor's prayer breakfast? And he said yes. And I was like, really? I didn't expect him to say yes at all, but I was delighted at that. And so when I met him, he struck me immediately as someone who's very competent at what they do. They're confident also in what he does. And he had a pretty good idea of how he wanted to run the police department on the day that he got there. And so part of that, I think, was to introduce the idea of chaplaincy. And so that's where we kind of started that relationship.
Now, how did you find the title for Salt and Light?
Yeah, Salt and Light Partners comes from a passage in the New Testament of Christian Bible, Matthew 5, verses 13 through 16. And it talks about encouraging believers to be the salt and light of the earth. And so salt as a preservative. And so it keeps things that are good or fresh good. And so if you think about the first century, how salt was used to preserve meat. And so what we think about as salt is something that preserves what is good. It also, as you know, spices up the flavor. And so it brings flavor to things. And so when we think about someone where the term comes from, that person is the salt of the earth, they're someone who is really good. They keep what is good, and also they're interesting. They have that salty flavor about them, that they're an interesting person to be around, so you want to do that. On the light side, we live in a pretty dark world. I think we could all agree to that there are some things about this world that we don't like. That is how it is, but we have the opportunity when we speak into someone's life that we provide light to that. We illuminate the darkness. And that's what that scripture is talking about too, is bringing the truth to an otherwise dark world. And so where salt is kind of a defensive mechanism, a preservative, light is an offensive mechanism, which is bringing the truth into a dark place. And so we want to be able to do both of those. Yeah.
All right. Now, so the idea was planted,
Yeah.
and you researched it, and what did you decide?
Yeah, so I interviewed chaplains from all over the United States. I just called them up, and they were, except for one, dozens of them, they were really willing to tell me everything that they knew. I think they wanted to share the good work that can be done in a public organization through chaplaincy. And so what I found was that there's a lot of different models to be able to do this. Some chaplains are volunteer. In fact, most chaplains are volunteer. Some chaplains are paid by the department. So if you look at a large department like New York or Chicago or Los Angeles, they're going to have paid chaplains on staff. And then there's a hybrid that we kind of landed on, that we would pay our chaplains to honor their time, which often sometimes doesn't happen with volunteers, and it's not to say that that's a better method. It's just one of the methods that we do. So some of the people I worked with were volunteers, others were paid employees of the department, and we decided to land on this model where the chaplains would be paid for their work. And so that's a part of the fundraising that we do as a nonprofit, is to be able to bring resources in so that we can give honor to the people that are doing the work.
So how many chaplains did you find?
Yeah, so we started with one, me, and then that grew to 4 for the Rochester Police Department. And then in this past year, we grew from 4 to 14 so that we could supply chaplains for both the Rochester Fire Department and Olmsted County Sheriff's Office.
And what do these people do when they're not being chaplains for the public?
Yeah, excellent question. And we wanted to diversify that group. Really, the requirement that they have is that they have at least 5 years of counseling experience, because that's the number one thing that we do, is spend time counseling people and coaching them through situations that are often very difficult. So that's number one. There's a long list of things that they need to do well in order to be a chaplain. But some of them are pastors in town, some of them are social workers in town, and some work in other areas that are related to counseling.
So you have 14.
14.
And you're open to some more?
Oh, we certainly can be, right? So as we think about our future and the way that we can grow healthily, we would like to be able to scope this program up to neighboring counties, perhaps, other organizations that are in our area, where we can be effective coaches and counselors for people that are mostly in the first responder role or public safety. That's kind of where we found our niche. And we kind of want to stick to that, though we have been exploring the idea of doing also private service or corporate chaplains as well.
And your organization is doing that all by itself?
Yeah, well, I have a lot of smart people around me, and so if you took a look at the members of our board, perhaps on our website or something, you would see that, wow, there's some heavy hitters on that group. And they're very talented individuals in very specific areas of service within our community, and that's why they were chosen. And when we asked them, they graciously agreed to come on board and help us out.
Okay, now let's give your website.
Yeah. So it's Salt and Light Partners. So that's all one word at saltandlightpartners.org.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good, so they can find out who's on your board.
Yep. Yeah, it's probably easiest if they simply Google Salt and Light Partners, Rochester, Minnesota. It'll be the first thing that pops up.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, now, how has it been going?
Yeah, really well, I believe, and if you talk to some of the people that we serve, I hope that they would say the same thing. But our whole objective, right, our goal is to bring spiritual and emotional wellness to organizations in our community. And sometimes that's been lacking. I think companies are getting a lot better at thinking about wellness in the community, but chaplains provide a service that's just a little bit different than you would find in traditional wellness programs. So you've got someone that's specifically within your organization that is charged with making sure that you are okay. So, and what does that look like? It's going to be different for every person that you talk to. But we feel like if we build relationships with people, that they are going to trust us over time, so that when something bad happens in their life, and quite frankly it will, none of us are immune, that you would be able to speak into their life during that moment of crisis or tragedy. And so that's what we've seen that we've done. At first, we started with the police department, so we were focusing just on police officers. And that seemed to be going well until we figured out that a lot of police officers were struggling at home with their families. And so we said, well, can we just open that up on now family members? Like, can we help them? And as Chief Franklin has said before, he said, broke cops give broke service. And so how do we make sure that our cops are not broke? And one of the ways is, if their family life is better, then their work life is going to be better.
Yeah.
Those are inextricably intertwined. You can't separate the two. As much as people would like to say, I'd leave that at home, it doesn't always work quite that way. So we started working on families, and then when we were going out on calls with police officers, we found that oftentimes when we're at a scene, it's the worst day of that person's life. I mean, imagine the police show up at your house. The reasons that they show up are generally not good. And you could be distraught, grieving, and so having a chaplain present during those moments has been really a positive effect, I think, on our community. We're seeing that we're getting feedback actually from citizens now that we've been in their home on a bad day, and they've written us to tell us and thank us for the service that we provided during that time.
I bet when you were in Afghanistan and some of those places in the Army, that you thought you could really use something like those chaplains to help you, right?
Yeah, in fact, there were chaplains. The U.S. Army employs chaplains as a military occupational specialty, an MOS. So that's what they do, is they are chaplains for the soldiers, and then sometimes for their families. Of course, that's not the case in Afghanistan, but when they go back home to the base or the unit that they're assigned to, they have access to the chaplains there. Funny thing, I had chaplains when I was in the military, and I knew them, but I didn't take advantage of all the wisdom that they had to offer, and I kind of look back on that and wish that I had engaged more.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're wonderful. The chaplains that are on our team are all caring and compassionate. It's what they do. They do this because they love to serve other people. It's a service role, and that's just a part of their DNA. And that's not we don't see that with everyone. And I appreciate all of them, the men and women that are on the team.
Okay, so you're not solely a religious organization.
Yeah, we serve anybody.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to us what your background is. If you have a faith background, don't have a faith background. It doesn't matter what your culture is. When we walk into someone's home, we treat them as human beings. That's what they are, and we share a bond. And because they're humans, they have intrinsic value. And so we pour in, we get the same service to everyone that we come in contact with, regardless of their background.
So do you go to the door then when they give bad news, for example?
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is like death notifications. So if someone dies in another state and their next of kin is here in Rochester or Olmsted County, the job of notifying the next of kin falls to law enforcement. And so with the sheriff's office and with the police department, I've gone along with the police officers to break that bad news to citizens in our area. And that can be a pretty traumatic time for them, for the officers as well, and for the deputies. And so we provide support to both those families and to our law enforcement officers, which is it's actually quite humbling to be able to be there in a moment of crisis and tragedy for someone in their grief. So to me, it's a great privilege.
Okay, so you require 5 hours of counseling training?
5 years of experience.
Years.
So they would have had counseling from a variety of different ways. Several of our chaplains have master's degrees in counseling, which is a huge benefit to be able to do that. Others have gotten their experience through decades of
5 years.
5 years, yeah. Pastoral counseling that they do as pastors or ministers in their churches as well.
And you're looking for some more, or you want this pool to extend?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because it has to be a really good fit to the organization that we're hiring them for. And so we don't take into just account your qualifications, but whether it's a good fit for you to be in the fire department, the police department, a private organization, or the sheriff's office. So at right now, that's what we're looking at. But if we expand, which, God willing, we will do that, then we'll be looking for people that are in and near the places that we're recruiting for. So if we hired someone for outside the county, if there's an organization outside our county that's looking for chaplains, we would go look in that local area for people with at least 5 years of experience and are a good fit for that organization. Both are critically important.
I think of the state patrol.
Yeah.
And having been a commuter on Highway 52 for 22 years, I got to know a lot of them. And I thought, boy, when they show up at your house, it's not good.
Yeah, it's usually bad news. And that's a burden for both the troopers and for the people whose door they're knocking on. And I think they do a fantastic job. From my experience, what I have seen, and it's good to have a person with you. Oftentimes that's left to a single individual going to someone's house, and it's good to have backup in that case where the emotional toll can be heavy, depending on how the people respond emotionally to the news that you're giving them. So, and I've seen a wide spectrum of responses, from simple grief to actually, and it's not their fault, it's how they lash out is just to become physical. And I've seen our deputies and our police officers take that with tremendous grace. They're so giving and caring and compassionate. I wish I could share most of the stories that I've experienced, and a lot of times they're just so personal that we can't.
I know.
But
I was married to the coroner.
Oh yeah,
I am
tough job,
married to
right?
who is the coroner, and
Yeah.
that's the same.
And so I see the medical examiners routinely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so when they come to the house, and they do a fantastic job too. I think most people in the public don't realize the great work that the public servants do in our community, and I can't speak for other communities, but I can say in the Rochester and Olmsted County areas that they're fantastic. Every single one of them. I've never had a bad experience.
Have you maintained your relationship with the U.S. Army?
Not really, other than to say that I have friends that are actually still active duty, and I got a note yesterday on Facebook from the guy who was my partner in Afghanistan, and he's he calls me his battle buddy, and we're still friends to this day. And so when you spend the time, which is really intense, with another human being, another person, you have a special bond during that time. And I think any of the combat veterans that might be watching would know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's also could be the equivalent of medical personnel working in an emergency department. When you're in that close proximity for a long time with someone, you get a bond that it's actually hard to explain. But our firefighters see this, our law enforcement officers see this as well. When they're working very closely with somebody that they have to trust to keep them alive in the next minute or next hour or next day, whatever the event is, you become very close to them. And so that's how I've maintained relationships with my friends from the military.
And now I have to ask you how you met Kathleen Harrington, because she has been a long-time leader and friend of this community from her times as being the president of the Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
And I know she has worked with the police chief and the sheriff, and she's a fan of yours.
Oh, well, that's humbling.
When did you meet her?
Well, it's been quite a few years ago when she was the president of the Chamber of Commerce. And my wife and her were friends first, and I was introduced to Kathleen, and she just strikes you immediately as a powerhouse, but someone with great humility as well, knowing that she doesn't have all the answers, but I'll tell you that she's got a lot of the answers. And so she was one of the very first people that we decided, we were like, hey, we should really have her on our board. And so when I said, hey, let's talk to her, we talked about that. And funny enough, Kathleen then reached out to me and said she wanted to be on our board. I couldn't believe it, because that was just a dream for us that she would offer that service. And so she's been a wonderful counselor to me and a great friend.
She has brought whole new attention to the word retirement.
Yeah, I wouldn't call what she's doing retirement. She may not be getting paid for much of the work that she's doing, but she's far from retired. She's a fantastic servant in this community and the communities that she's been in the past. We had a lot of stories that we traded about Washington, D.C. when we lived there. We lived there for 12 years, and she was there for quite a bit of her career as well.
Okay, now what would you like to say to our viewers?
Oh, wow. It is an honor, really, to be able to do the work that we do in our community, and we love serving our public servants. So we talk about serving those who we serve, and we provide this is what we call a thread of hope in the fabric of our community. We just want to be there for our public servants, their families, and the citizens with whom they interact.
And we'll want to keep track of how you grow this organization.
Yes, I would love to maintain this relationship with you, Jane. You've been an icon in our community for so many years, and it's a privilege to be here with you today.
What can we do to help you?
Well, we are having a gala on March 3rd, so Friday, March 3rd of this year, and that gala is going to be used primarily as a fundraising tool to build resources so that we can pour back into our chaplains. And so that'll be held at the International Event Center at Rochester, and we're going to spend a couple of hours that night sharing some really good stories.
Tell us where it is.
International Event Center out at
Okay.
the airport, near the airport. And so it's from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock on Friday, March 3rd. You can get tickets on our website at saltandlightpartners.org. Our Facebook page, again, that's a simple search.
How much are tickets?
$75 individually. You can buy a table for $600. And then there are varying levels of sponsorship if you wanted some advertising for your business or organization. And we have lots of people that are taking advantage of that.
That sounds great.
I'm really excited for the night.
March 3rd.
March 3rd, that's right.
Remember that.
Yeah.
Remember that. March 3rd is their fundraising.
Yeah.
Well, it's after dinner,
Yeah.
6 to 8.
Well, it will include dinner. So
Through dinner.
the fantastic food that we get from Powers Ventures.
Oh, yeah.
It's always good.
I know it.
Yeah.
And he is always good.
Yeah, Joe's a fantastic guy. We're working with Nick on this, and Nick has been wonderful to work with, and his team as well. So we're looking forward to a wonderful night that we get to have some fellowship with each other, trade some stories, and celebrate our public servants.
We're down to our last 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And you can use those 3 minutes to welcome new people of interest or just people who would like to come on the 3rd of March.
Yeah.
Whatever you'd like to do.
Yeah, we would love to see you then and start a relationship. But you can also see what we're up to on our Facebook page, and we have an Instagram account as well. Those are a couple of ways that we're reaching out to people. You can also reach out to me at george.beech@saltandlightpartners.org and ask us any questions that you would like to about the work that we do, our motivation for doing it. I love to tell the stories, and in a more private interaction and venue, I can share a little bit deeper about what we're doing. And the great impact I think that we're having on our community, and not just our public servants, their families, but also on the citizens that we come in contact with that are in Olmsted County. So potentially 160,000 people that we could meet over the course of the work that we do. And usually it's on one of the worst days of people's lives, which is really unfortunate, but it also gives you, or I hope it gives you, a sense of comfort knowing that there's somebody that's going to be beside you and walking alongside you during that grief that might be happening with you as well, and connect you with resources in our community. So that's what we're trying to do is we would love to make care for the heart and the spirit a part of workplace wellness programs, and that's what Salt and Light Partners does.
Thank you, George Beech.
Yeah, thank you, Jane.
God will bless you
Yeah, amen.
for what you're doing.
Thank you.
And your viewers can check your website
Yes,
on saltandlightpartners.org.
that's correct.
Okay. Thank you for the interview, and we are glad to hear about that because we've heard about it from the sheriff and from the chief of police before, so
Yeah,
we're
very
glad
nice.
to find out where it all started.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, our viewers, for being with us this week. A little bit different and yet really critically important when we need their help. And thank you for your interest in the program. We'll be with you next week, same time, same channel. In the meantime, have a very good week and a very good night.